Oh man, I love full cam so much because it makes certain elements so much more impressive, like that mess. Ooh!
We can turn it off. 이대로 right on, right on. We can turn it off. Just ready, vibe on, vibe on.
Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield and I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we are finally here to be able to talk about Ride the Vibe by NEXZ, the dance portion, the choreography. I'm here for it. I tried really hard to not watch this performance version because I really wanted to wait for a full cam or a fixed cam of it, because the last time I'd looked at NEXZ, I've never seen them in a fixed cam format at all in any of their works, so I really was curious as to what they look like in that regard. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Really good groove. Ooh. Yay! Whoa. Oh, I'm having so much fun right now. Woo! Yeah. Yeah, in the freaking hay too. That's dope. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Nice. Oh man. Ugh. It just makes your face want to just scrunch up, right? Ee's grimy. Yeah. I like it that time too with the swivel with the arm. I'm digging it. Yeah. Yeah, wow. Yo. Hey. Ah. Ah. Love that. Whew. Okay. That was good. That was great. Man, that was awesome. I liked the music video. I really like the performance version. That's freaking sick. But we got the full cam right here. It's a full shot. I am so excited to look at this. Here we go. Oh man, I love full cam so much because it makes certain elements so much more impressive, like that mess. Ooh! Now, do I wish it was a one take? Obviously, but I will take this. Okay, got a little bit of a stability kind of note for that. Subtle though. Oosh. Golly. Yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ah. This backbeat, I don't know if I said it about the music video, it does remind me of like Powerpuff Girls, like Saving the World, you know what I mean? But then it goes grimy to... It's like R&B hip-hop vibes. God, it's so good. Yes. Woo! Stop it. God, the subtlety of the switches on that are really nice. Ooh. Ah. Ah. Oh, they finished. God, that was so good. So freaking good. And he's centered. God, that makes me so mad how good that was. Sometimes whenever you watch something, you're like, that was really good. Every time I see it, it's good. Why? You know, consistency. So consistent in their presentation of it, which really sells it. Truly. Golly, okay, from the top. So good. I'm really happy to be able to look at them post-debut. It's the first post-debut. I've seen them in Miracle. I'm still really wanting a fixed cam version of that because that mess is fire AF. Here we go. All right. From the setup, notice the formation. They're operating as a group of 7, so they can mess around with asymmetry a lot of times, but it is a lot easier to showcase symmetry with one-point features. Every time I look at a group and I look at how many members are a part of the group, that is always something talked about, because sometimes we forget, with 6 people, I forgot they had 6 people because it never looked off balance, or maybe when people have choreographers that may not be super familiar or fluent in troubleshooting, creating fun levels and different dynamics in their transitions and choices like that, it can kind of feel off balance throughout the routine. But in this case, not at all. And that can be a potential reason, is who they have choreographing. I know Alex, they did Ring-a-Ling. God, the texture on that was really nice. So that really worked in their favor here on some of their texture shifts, that especially near that tail end was really fun. But I digress. My point being, very fun in the formation choices, how they structured it. It's very interesting how they chose to reveal members or feature them, because it wasn't following the typical path of projecting all to the front like you see a lot of times. So I digress. I like this crawling action that's happening right here from one of our features, crawling up to the top. I like that da-da-da-da-da. And I like the subtlety of being, the surprise. It doesn't look too aggressive, but it also doesn't look plain. So we can see it all the way from back here, which is really fun. That's why part of me really wishes it just stayed this far back, so we can really see how well do they project. Because a lot of times in a competition format, if you're talking about competition choreography with groups, a lot of times judges sit further back so they can really judge that projection and stage presence through movement, not just in face. So I like the fact that we can really clearly see what's going on here. That's fun. I like the subtlety. Da-da-da-da-da. Feels very conversational. I like that everyone's slowly starting to be engaged with your feature. Really nice. And I like how my other feature, who literally was responding from this hand, he comes out and moves to the other side, but not in a way that feels, it's right on the time. So he doesn't just walk away ignoring the music. So there's always an intention by listening to our music, which I appreciate, because as dancers or people who dance, it is important to make sure that we are stewarding our music well in our transitions, in our formations, in our content. That's for a choreographer. That's more of a note for choreography. And that's why it's really nice to really just have that here, where even when they break away for a feature or a sub feature, they are still mindful of the music. And so it feels to me, you want me to still be mindful of the music too. It's a lead by example kind of influence with dancers. I think that's cool. I like he takes it and he does a little pull through, really nice. So they walk over here, so my other feature does, and he, you know, is pretty still and he holds it down, no problem. But I would say one of my guys right here, he ends up getting a little bit lower and he kind of has a subtle like stability. He loses his balance ever so slightly. This is the first time I'm seeing them lose balance because I hadn't seen them in their survival show. I will look at that at some point when, I can't tell you, but I know it's going to happen. It's going to be great, but I digress. I like that da-da-da, so they do a nice little jack or little body roll to come up with the energy. They double it up, boom, boom, boom. Notice that we're using the chest and we're pressing it down, raising those shoulders ever so slightly. I love the build of the energy. This formation and how it's structured and where they're looking, that is a really great context clues for us to know that the camera is right here pointing to them. It is not projected from our shot. And I don't mind that. A lot of choreographies are structured that way. Hey Ya by IVE is a great example of certain shots were meant to be taken in certain ways. Here, it doesn't look awkward. It just feels like they're applying and they're saying hello to this side of the audience, which is great commitment from them and good choreography structure to be able to see it and from different lens, and it still looks really nice and entertaining. Like the little kick there, and then they go and they reset, does a little push into a, you know, just a windowed transition. They switch lines, really nice. And notice that our feature is still a little bit higher than my other guys. They're squatted a little bit lower. Yes, I have gotten all of them name-wise right before, but some of them did change their names between the archives and here. So I am too insecure to re-go for the names today. So if one of you guys wants to go in the comments and help me with what they're wearing, I mean, they're all wearing black and white, that's fine. But if you want to help me like reestablish what names they go by now, maybe I'll take a stab at it for their next one, but not today. But anyway, so I like the level choice, and then they take it, they dig through, boom, boom. So notice with that groove right there, they're letting the torso get involved. It's not like the arms are not moving with nothing to have any results to come from it, right? So as they're moving, notice that they're having a lot of fullness with that chest in those ribs especially. They're letting the shoulders droop with it. They're making it a whole moment in the torso. And a lot of times when you have feature, they kind of showcase more of an absence of that because they're vocalizing. And that's anything that you're kind of teetering with in terms of your upper body, you run a higher risk of not being stable vocally. So especially for really new groups, like in this case for NEXZ, this is their debut. So even though they have a lot of dance experience at this point, like a lot of concept shoots, whenever you do your own discography, this is their voice, right? Their vocals. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was something that became more modified in their actual discography choreo instead of what you saw in the archives, which was a push of different grooves and textures. But I mean, there are some simpler buildups that they're doing here in some of their grooves, but some of them are pretty syncopated and are very well done. I still think Miracle is probably one of the most difficult in terms of syncopated and polyrhythmic for the cleanliness that they showcase. I still stand by that, but having a fixed cam would be my true verification of that statement, but I digress. I do like this choreo on them a lot. I like that they take the energy and then they push away, so it's really clear to us, even if we didn't have a camera to guide us, they're finished because they're not looking at us, but we have somebody else whose face is now projected forth. He does a little hop over. Let's go back to appreciate what that was just then. He does a little, you know, using his weight, pressing it onto the back. Normally a really great place to put pressure on somebody's back would either be the lumbar section, so like right by the hips, or right there by the shoulder blades where the rib cage is, right there in the sweet spot in the middle. So not really the best because it's just spine helping you. They're an organ. So having, you know, like your pelvis or ribs on somebody's back to help you put an anchor point or put your weight where your hand is on that is always really helpful. So it does look like he put his weight on his upper back there. So I think that's great. Very nice and stable so he can get a lot higher, which is what you see. Love that. So I like the pull through for my other guys as they exit off. And he comes up. I like the snap, and that snap triggered everybody else around him to respond. It was a very easy way for us to clock our feature, but no, this is a different group. I like this part with your feature only does one hand, but everybody else does two. Kind of feels like we're wearing headphones, right? Love it. And then notice this is not a simple body roll front. It is a circulated, it's a circular groove. And I really like that with the chest, because normally you would see people just do a body roll and they just clock it diagonally. A lot of boy groups, I just noticed, do that. And then they switch into a circular one. But straight out the gate, doing more of an opposed kind of rotated figure 8 action with the hips versus the chest is very interesting for the first thing we see from this group with traveling it up. So it's very polyrhythmic because you want to have your arms be influenced by what's going on in the chest. But that's not quite the case at all. They have to keep it on the same playing field. So you have to make sure that that upper back is not being too influenced, and it is low-key over-isolating so they can have this fun, subtle movement while having this fullness in the chest. Little things like that really go far on moves like this. Looks great. That hit. Now I gotta double check to make sure they didn't actually influence with this part right here. Oh, I already missed it. My bad. Come on. Oh my gosh, I missed it again. Okay, down to like 12, sure. Down. Oh, my bad. See, I was doing this, like, they could do that. That's a lot harder, them keeping it here, but not letting this get too influenced to maintain space. I still stand by it. It's still difficult to hold this here and not let it be overly influenced by your chest. I was just looking at it from a different lens, so my apologies there. I'm glad I went back. My bad. But from here, I like that. Da-da-da. Very conversational. They're presenting out. Really nice. And then they take the arms, and then they're going to use it to create like a subtle accented kind of fixed point vibe where they're going to kick, and then it's like a scuff or a kick, and then they're going to hop to the energy of where that kick took place. So I'm not thinking that foot that they kicked with, it could be a fixed point, meaning that they kick it and then that foot stays where it is and then they hop to it, but that's not quite the case. They use it as an accent. Where the energy of that accent took place, that's where they're hopping to. So it's very efficient, great usage of their space, looks great, and they're building it up. I like how he's tapping it right there. Melody, I like that. They go and they turn. And right here, everybody using their hips, their lower body, not just their upper body to transition. No one's legs are straight. They're using a rock and a bounce, which really helps in subtlety. When you justify any sort of hip hop influence, you gotta have a rock and a bounce. That's like a non-negotiable in hip hop. So I love that. Even when you're doing hybrid choreo with a hip hop influence, that rock and that bounce save lives, man. I love this part. Really nice and full. I really appreciate that. Everybody's arm range is really nice. I enjoy that. Of course, their feature was nice and subtle, so it was very easy to see him. He transitions over from stage left to stage right. Then from here, even that's not technically really a basket run. They kind of use the head, crown of the head, they trot on tempo, da-da-da-da-da, to a fun new spot, which is great. Now we're in a V. Ooh, ooh, no, ooh, 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 and it feels like there's a delay behind their movement to the music. There's that boom, 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 so it went from tempo to double time. So the BPM is the same, but it doesn't feel the same because their movement density has now progressed, but it's not hardcore. Like, it's not full in that rock and that bounce like what you saw earlier, because the timbres, and this is the beauty of sound context, notice that it feels like we dived into a different genre. So it feels more it's not hip hop is what you hear. It kind of feels like old school cartoon is really what it feels like. It really reminds me of Powerpuff Girls, but in like such a great way. Not choreography, but just in sound. It's fun. The slide through, I love that. So it gives more of a like a jazz quickness, like doing more jazz, I think would feel more fitting for this. And in this case, they've eliminated that rock and that bounce with that grunge pocket exploration, but we see it back in the chorus. They take the arms very clear. Notice that some of them the crossover's really nice. They take it through and they go ding, ding, ding. And I really like the pickup right here. So it's different in rocks, and now it's more we're exploring up bounce versus down bounce, which is really fun. I'm going to probably go to 0.75 because I do feel like there's so many like quick moments, and I feel like I stop a little too prematurely sometimes. So this little trot vibe is so enjoyable. Hitting it, and then they're traveling up the arms, which is really nice. And then from here, they take those, they pull, and as they pull with the hips, that's what really helps with that. They're having an accent with the wrists that are happening near the hips, so it accentuates both both focal points very well. Also, where they're looking is more downcast instead of up. So we're not looking at the direction that they're going, because they're not technically looking that direction. They're looking down. So it's easier to clock what's going on with the wrists and the hips. So I like that choice. The power of where somebody looks does speak volumes, and where us as an audience want to look. So I really like that choice. And of course, it looks very symmetrical, great subtle spacing thing over here on stage left, but it's so subtle. And he's also my feature. So whenever you have features, I think is absolutely appropriate if there's subtle modification, progression, or what they end up doing in the space in their transitions, always get like a low-key pass, because they are the feature and the goal is to look at them, and everybody else is there as either an accessory or an ornament for that moment. But it still wants to be cohesive and complementary, especially if you're dealing with a group. It's not a soloist with dancers, it's a group with a feature. Like there's a difference between the two, and I really like, so far it's felt very much that way, where I get to see the features and they get to puzzle piece their way right back in with the group, no problem. So from there, looks great. I love that. Once again, notice that shoulder really pressed up on that last one before they transition over to the other side. And I like that right there. It does feel like we're playing a guitar, but also it's like a little angsty, maniac on the floor. Like it's giving that, but not that era at all. It just feels that kind of pulse, that pump vibe, right? It doesn't give an old school vibe. That's later. This feels more like that new school interruption, which I think is really cool. And these movements and how they progressed help justify the shift in genre and the shift in movement quality. It's great. And then they take it through, ooh, ooh, ooh. Now, in the performance version, I did notice it here, when you deal with finger waves of any kind and you have them in a space. So if I have my arms up and I'm moving and I'm navigating my hands, you want to try to fight to keep the distance between your waves, or whenever you're creating a shape, the same. Regardless if I'm doing a legato, if I'm ticking it, if I'm dime stopping it, things like that. You want to maintain the shape unless the intention is to make it smaller or make it bigger. In this case, I do feel like some of them don't quite have the curve to follow a line. Like if this was like a water line, if it was vertical and I'm traveling in and out of it like a dolphin, right? That's kind of the illusion you want to give. A lot of this wasn't quite as clear as it could be. So that would be my general note for that. But it's still very nice. Everyone's just taking a subtly different approach to it. It looks great. It's just slightly, for them, they're going to be known for synchronicity. Every group is known for something. Some are known for their production. Some are known for their stage presence for live. Some are known for their synchronicity. Some are known for their choreography and complexity and difficulty of it. Even if that means sacrificing synchronicity. In this case, they will be known for cleanliness. I really feel that. And so far, they are definitely meeting the mark on terms of maintaining that role. And it's very impressive for all of their stuff that they've done up until this point. I love this little, like we're eating, but you know, they have this little dig or this little pulse that's happening with the head. I love that because it doesn't feel not really laid back. It's definitely like, you know, it gives that little cat cute vibe, but it also vibes well with that wrist accent they did with the hips earlier. But it does give a different presentation because of the commitment of the upper body. Really nice. Everybody's nice and full. Everyone's making their own subtle choices there. And you can tell because how they're shifting, even though the energy is traveling the same, but how everyone's looking around. They made obvious choices, though subtle, but still obvious, that, hey, we're making our own choice here. We're just matching the same tempo and a similar vibe in terms of the wrist integration, which I like. Then they're taking the arms. Notice with the fingers, they're very clear with it, where they're switching it up, and notice that we're trying to be very mindful of the shoulders. The shoulders are more of a focal point here than the torso. The torso is going to create a different angle, but the shoulders are going to create fullness without ruining the line that they've established collectively. I think that's so fun. Notice with the legs, the crossovers are really nice with the arms. It's super fun. And then right here, they are all on the left foot. Some of them are on the ball of the foot, some are more on the heel, and then they're going to take it. This is very similar to this, but notice that hands matter so much, because if you have somebody doing a wave here versus here, it's going to look different, right? Just like going from a blade to a fist feels different and can showcase a different range of emotions. Whenever you're sad, you don't really clench your fist unless you're trying to stop yourself from crying, right? When you're angry, you want to clench your fist. If you're happy, you want to have open hands, vigorous jazz hands. There's a lot of subtle things in our day-to-day life that are influenced, like our hands are influenced by our emotions, and how we carry yourself is also placating to that. And so that's why we can easily kind of educatingly guess what kind of vibes vibes we're going for, not just in performance, but in the hands as well in the choreography. That's really nice. So I like the pull on that is really cool. And with your feature, I like this where he takes it and then he goes do 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 do. He hits those different choices in the music, and normally you have everybody else hit that and he just rides whatever tone he is going on. So technically he has a harder job, my feature in the middle, because he's being polyrhythmic not just in the movement but also the vocals on top of it. Even if it's in a ooh 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 do 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 do, that is completely different than the vocals he was trying to justify this just then. It's still very impressive, very happy. I'm so happy to talk about this. I think this is so fascinating. I love it. Take the arm up nice and full, so he drops it down. I love that he goes and notice it builds up. It's a little bit more full. Definitely the same tempo, that double time, but there's a boom, like there's a more fullness in the back end that doesn't feel like it dropped out or changed entirely like we heard in the first section, which not first section of the track, but first section of this section of the track, which is cool. I love the commitment of everybody kind of trotting and they're running, but on tempo. That's awesome. Love to see it. And they're running through. And then from there, really full notice that they're using wide range of their arms. They got a little bit lower, and then and that really helps in that transition whenever they reset somewhere else. It does look a bit not, it doesn't feel symmetrical, but that's fine. It still looks balanced though, because you have 3 on one side, 3 on the other. You have a feature in the center, but you do have some of them that are catered more towards back, more towards front. It all looks fine, especially because they're all facing different directions. It's going to look more like a sporadic formation that does feel different, but it's still collective. And in these moments, synchronicity does matter if you're doing unison, because everyone's facing different directions. And in order for us to appreciate the visual of the buildup of the choreo, everyone has to do the choreo the same way for us to really see that and the directional change. So in this place here, so they go and they frolic, da da da. Then from here, they take the right arm, they go over, over, so it goes knee, knee. The hand complements that. You can even tell to the curve of the freaking hand how that's supposed to travel. That's the kind of stuff that I look at when it comes to groups that are going to be known or are known for synchronicity. I look at how the hand is clean, because a lot of times people neglect that. They just think about the body or the focal point. They don't think about the detail to make the focal point stand out more. And that's what I really enjoy about this group, is through the cleaning process and through the collective on the same page vibes, regardless of everybody's training. You cannot tell who has trained for a year and who has trained for 13. Like now I know who has and who hasn't, but you can't tell in a collective look here, which is so good if you want to captivate the general public who don't know anything about your group, right? So I think that is so incredible that we're able to talk about having this on check for a debut. Let's freaking go. You know, it's just so good. And I love how they goes move, move, and then they go into tap. So they switch how this comes across, but even the tap has some sense of fullness to it. And I could see the difference, which really makes it captivating in its own right. Then they take the arms, they branch it across, then they take the arm, they look at it, and then they look away from it, and it really showcases a variety or a distance from the energy that they just promoted on themselves. Really cool. Feature is in the front. Really nice to see, because he's the only one facing front with his body and his head. Everybody else is either looking front, but their body's in a different direction, or they're just completely in a different shot. Cool. Then this, that goes ooh, ooh, ooh. Notice the movement when they go the hoo, hoo, hoo. It's so different. There's not like these heavy basses or tonal colors like what we heard earlier. So there's not so much fullness that has to be justified, right? In this case, you have this it's like you're in a car and it's just harmonized, and it's so beautiful in how it's structured. And so you don't want to do movement that's too loud, that kind of overshadows that sound, for us to really be like like you have those headphones on and they've already kind of showcased that as an Easter egg in the beginning. Like this should feel like we're vibing out, like ride the vibe. This is really what it's called. They're showcasing what a ride on a vibe looks like. A vibe is not just here, it's everywhere. You got to keep engaging on maintaining vibe, right? It's not something that is given, it is earned. You have to show that you know how to vibe, and they do. And that's what makes it so enjoyable to talk about and watch. This is so fun. But you notice they showcase the imagery of the headphones, and so it feels like we're in our own little world. So going subtle on the sometimes when you're like by yourself, you can go super full out, but then sometimes when you're like on a train, you're just like And they're showcasing more of that vibe. So notice they go head ISO, and they're using the hand to help create some sense of control, or not tracing, but it's in the same family of it, where they're controlling or making it look like my head's turning because my hand's pushing it, even though my head could move without my hand's help. Then they travel it down to the shoulder. And then if they drop it down from the chest, and then they use the hand at the tail end to accent a slide going on with the opposing arm. And I like that some are looking towards the leg, some are looking away. I like that individualized choice. It does provide variety, but everybody showcases the same competency of range on that leg sliding in. Everyone's doing it at the same rate, which makes it really enjoyable. So you can explore those individuality moments, but still keep it very clean with the different directions. So your feature is now walking forward, but then it switches out really nice on his reveal. He uses the head to turn. Nice, easy reveal. Everyone's walking on tempo. Mwah, love it. Then they go do. This, so fun. Then they go around that part with the head. Our feature's the only one that doesn't have his legs about elbow length apart. He has about shoulder length apart. How you can tell is elbow. So elbow's about right there. So if you hold your arms up like this, where your elbow taps out at, that's the distance between your feet. That's what we call elbow length apart. And then shoulder length apart is going to be my feet are standing underneath this, and they're stacked underneath the shoulders. So in this case, our feature's the only one that is stacked on the shoulders. Everybody else is at elbow. Regardless of your height, that's something you try to measure, is that. That's awesome. Of course, you can see a subtle spacing thing right here between the two, but that is so, when I say so freaking minimal, it's because of an aerial shot that we're able to clock this. But like, he is literally like 6 inches too far forward. But everybody's head, focal point was up here. We're not paying attention to the distance between the members here. It's so fun. This is so fun right now. Then it goes wee, and notice that it goes boom, boom. The entire tonal color just shifted. We went back to that tempo, right? We didn't go to that double time. We're back. We're sinking right back in it. So their texture posture shift, not just the texture execution, meaning that how it feels to the eyes, but how their posture and how they hold themselves has now shifted in a freaking split second. This is all they had to get into the next moment, and they cannot make it look awkward at all. The more people, the more risk you run on that, and that looks phenomenal. That was great. We can, and I love how they're not going, we can turn, they goes, we can, so they're hitting on the in-betweens right here, so it makes you listen to the boom, boom, whoo, get it. Then it goes, hop, and then you hear that bass, boom, the bass triggers this effect, so I really like that. Some of them don't quite have the connection quite yet on the wrist, some do. I'd say my feature does here. They rotate it around, so that does affect range. So notice that here, some of our guys, because they had it connected already, they already had finished the rotation because they didn't have to spend any time connecting the wrist. But my guys in the back are still rotating at this point because they didn't have their wrist connected as they brought it up. So those little details can factor in, if you're doing unison, how your start and your finish are affected. A lot of times when people think timing, they just think the move A and move B. They don't think about how long it takes to get to count from one count to another. So I really like the fact that we're able to talk about these things so early with this group. God, like when I say I'm having so much fun, complete understatement. This is so fun for me to just sit and just talk through every nook and cranny of this routine on a synchronicity front. It's just so enjoyable. So that's a little side note there, just more of an observation. And then from here, I love that they're taking the shoulders and they're using like the shift with the ribs to make this a fun, grimy moment over to the side. Then they take it, boom, and then they're going to trot with the legs, bum, with the switch of the weight on that. Then they cross, whoom. Notice that everybody rocked forward, swung those arms back. They tried to fight to have the same angle. Very well done. That also showcases that we're trying to fight to have some degree of similar flexibility in the shoulders. That's something that is harder to hide whenever you do a swing like that, because somebody who has a stiff shoulder, their wingspan's going to be wider because they can't bring their arms back because their shoulders aren't as flexible. And the same can be said about somebody who's hyperextended in the shoulders. They may overshoot it and make it too far up. So that was very clean and very well done, knowing that everybody has different backgrounds and potential different flexibility points on their shoulders, on their legs, things like that. So that was really nice to see. Of course, you have one of them has a little bit more fullness in his posture or how he's presenting. So his role is going to look a little bit more full and more open because of how he's setting it up. He's not in this like little first position vibe, but he's not the only one. So it's a little bit more sporadic. I love the subtlety of that, and then it goes so big. And I like that they're looking at each other. It feels communal, which ties into the beauty of street styles. Pretty much most, if not all, stemmed from a community and a culture in a scene where it's dancing with each other. It's not in isolation. And so having these types of interactions with each other, but showcasing a fullness and showcasing cleanliness, if we've taken the time to really clean this with a fine-tooth comb, but we've maintained some sense of presence and authenticity behind the movement for ourselves, is so wonderful. And it makes you want to watch it even more, and it makes you want to do it because they're looking at each other and they're having so much fun. It makes me want to have fun, right? So I love that. They makes it so big. I love that with the cross. So they technically, some of them didn't really crisscross over, but I like the body roll to create that tension right back from that soft and loud to back to the soft, but they use tension and more of a like a subtle body roll up. Really nice. They bring it up, and then they're going to expand using it from here. They're going to take that finger, that wrist, and they're going to rotate it towards the head or away from the head. Then notice that they're still right on. Ooh, I mean, they could go full with that. They don't need to. Nah. It just feels like that. Then they drop it down, and then we have a nice stability check there. So some of them did end up hopping ever so slightly because when you hold, these types of choices, so you're trying to be abstract and create all these fun moments to match all the other members. But the issue you run with that is the more you move up here on one leg, the harder it's going to be to maintain balance on said leg, especially if you don't have the balance in the best place. Some of my guys don't quite have it near the ball, like on the ball of the foot, but they don't have it in a place that's going to feel helpful to them. I would say my center right here, you notice he's just a smidgen turned in, so that looks like to me he's probably catering more towards that outside near that pinky toe right here, like that kind of padding. So my recommendation to him is always try to fight to like have instead of trying to fight to avoid sickling the foot or having it turned in, unless it's like a butterfly or something along those lines, because if you place your weight near the big toe ball of the foot, it's going to allow us to see, and you're going to have more consistency in your balance. And that's just for studio dance. Whenever we do pirouettes, when we do anything that revolves going up on releve or rising onto the ball of the foot, that's where we tell dancers to put their weight, because that's going to be consistent and it's going to avoid sickling and creating not a pretty line. So in this case, it's so subtle. It's just a note. This is the first time I'm seeing it. It's at 0.75, but they're doing a pretty freaking phenomenal job, like for real, holding it down. And I love the personality that they're bringing to this. Really fun. And I like right here, so they go and they expand it out. They do an extra breath on top of it. So it goes here, boom, boom, in the stability check. Really nice. And then they transition and like the subtlety, bum, 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 bum. Notice some of them are pushing their head a little bit more forward. When their head's forward, it looks different than when their head's up, right? So I think it's really fun though. You could tell who's trying to vocalize. I would say my vocalist has his head a little bit more up. Others have it a little bit more down. You have somebody else right here. I like his choice with I just like his fit. It's dope. And he is also not wearing sleeves here. He is oh my gosh, who is it? His name is, oh, hold on. Haru's our popper. And wasn't he wearing short sleeves like that for Alex's archive? Because I made a note about it. Because some of his choices weren't as lanky as long sleeves would have really advocated for him to look. So, but in this case, I think it's just really funny seeing the overlap. But he doesn't look awkward at all, is my side note. I think it's funny that, that may turn into a staple type of fit for him, because I've seen it a couple times now. But I like the choice where he's taking the arm, boom, kind of whipping it to the side. Everybody leaning really nice on that leg, making it a full moment. Notice how wide their legs are. So they have to really be mindful of how far they shift that energy over to reset it, which I really like. Some of them are really using the head. Some are trying to keep it in line with a little tilt. Both look fine. It feels more like personality for that case. Then from there, boom, and then they kind of switch the feet. I call this like a little penguin walk. It's kind of cute. And right there, notice with one of them takes his hand and he starts rotating it, and they're letting their torso kind of look like a little spinning top as they're doing this little penguin trot. That's really impressive for a transition. And they're moving to a new spot. And then from there, they kind of take they take the legs and then they reset, but they're in the back corner. That's such an impressive transition that they just did. Our feature is still featuring, but then we have a new feature. Everybody takes their head 1, 2, and then they double it. When you have another guy, he takes his hands. It does feel like boom and boom. He's riding it, you know, he's riding the vibe in the back, similar to a lot of other cases that he did earlier that they did as a group, right? So with this right here and then with this right here, all of the hand waves are such a vibe. I love seeing them, so I'm glad they're in this routine because it's called Ride the Vibe. But my guy, he just, Haru just switched and faced the back very well, but they go single and then they double it. Yeah, it goes boom. And a boom, boom. Now, some of them are traveling it down. It looked like they were traveling it down in the performance version here. It did feel like we were kind of resetting and we're keeping on the same plane. Both look fine. I just think it's interesting that the camera shot gave an appearance in the other version of them traveling it down. But it doesn't shock me at all because when I just looked at Maniac by Stray Kids, when they hit it over, they technically reset, but the camera makes it look like they're getting lower and lower when they're really not. So I love the art of cinematic perspective. I think it's so fun. So he comes in, so he does the same thing, boom, to boom, similar to the very beginning of the chorus. Really fun. Then they go boom, right there on the percussion. Let's go. Then this part right here really feels like we're going Scarecrow right here with this mess. I love it, and you can tell by the hands and the ribs and the opposition, which is super fun. Yeah, so this whole groove right here, if you were to equate it to a street style, that is under popping, or boogaloo style is the umbrella term that we would use for that. So that's called Scarecrow, but their hands are a little bit different. I love the shift in it, and they're hitting and riding the bass similarly to how poppers, they hit the bass, but you're not going to hit it on the bass. You're gonna hit it right before the bass sound disappears. That is the best way to describe being in the pocket. Shout out to Castro, Mr. Popper from New York, who worded that beautifully, that I have gleaned and I've put in my own arsenal of how I would also explain being in the pocket. So fun. And they take it, boom, da, I love that. And then they take it and rotate it around. So fun. Then they turn into a nice little legato groove on the balls of the feet. And they take that arm, they travel it up. So if you notice here, they are traveling the arm up similarly to how I was talking, like I was completely just making this up where they travel it up. I do see people do that. That's probably why I projected it. But notice that they take that hand, bringing it up, hitting it through, they swing it around, that part right there. So notice there is a body roll going on, but this is on a completely different vibe that's going on. It's nice and smooth, it's consistent, it's strong. That's what I said about this right here, where they bring the energy up, but they're doing grooves. So this has to fight against what's going on in the grooves in the torso. I would extend to this section right here, because that is in fact true. They're taking it through, they're doing body rolls. It is more linear instead of rotational. So it does make it a smidgen easier to do more linear, smooth range into a position, a speed change, if you want to call it that. But once you go rotational, it adds a whole nother level of opposition or combativeness to refining your technique to really make it look different. So I love the choice here. That was fun. Glad it was placed there. Subtlety, and then everybody else takes a fist, and then they bring it across. Your feature's the only one kind of placating, modifying, doing something subtly different, which I really like. This part right here, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. The reason why this works well is because you saw this little snake action happening with the head earlier in the corner. And so we're used to seeing them in this kind of squatted second position vibe, bent in the knees, very grounded is what they're showcasing here, which I love. But they're no stranger to using the head to showcase the griminess. The griminess doesn't really come from the hips as much as it's been coming from the head in this choreo, which I really like the overlap here. But seeing this more isolated effect just ties in all these other fingerprints that we've been seeing in other movements of the choreo, which I really like. And they take through do-do-do-do, and then right here, nice. It's very much like a march. They could totally make it this like super grungy full vibe, but instead they make it feel a little bit more of a rock focus, which makes sense to the type of genre they're justifying here. Like not really R&B hip hop, but definitely giving a more chill hip hop vibes. Not lo-fi by any means, but I digress. It's not really calling for like this sensual legato here. It's just subtle, more an environment, not quite in the focal point for that moment right there. Super cool. I love that da-da-da. I love the crossover on that part. Then it takes it through. I like this. Notice that all of my guys, they are angled towards our feature. Really nice, symmetrical, fantastic. And I like with our feature, he hits it, it's over on this side, so it's really nice to see. Then you travel it up, D, and I like the sharpness. It really is easy to see that there because they're able to showcase legato when necessary and shift over to sharpness very quickly staccato, which I love that. Nice with the I love you sign. Then he takes a boom, da-da-da, and then we sink right back into it. Really love that he has fullness. Using his back, he takes a nice little pull, and that pull actually creates a fun opposition to get him to transition back closer to the group. Then they go da-da-da. I love that outlier moment where now it feels like he's now sunken back into the formation. They use their hands to accent and present a pocket of space for him. Really love that accent here. And then they have a pause. Boom, they dig right back into it. And those are another little section of moments that really help when you're clean, when you do unison, whether it's one person featured and everybody doing the same thing or everybody doing the same thing. It helps us appreciate the subtle with the drops every single time, especially if you are trying to justify a groove or a texture you normally don't see collectively done in this way in this genre of music. Golly, this is cool. And I like how he takes it with another little pulls. I like that. It complements what he did earlier, but he's just staying right there in the formation. Then they go da-da-da. They double it up on the chest. Looks really nice. The walkthroughs is really cool. Then they go hit and hit. So now we've continued the transition. I do think one of my guys overshot ever so slightly forward, or one of my guys undercut, and not undercut, but he didn't move as far forward as he needed to. Let me see if he was right here. Yeah. So he was fine. He was a little bit too far back, which is why he stuck out ever so slightly. Because some people may be like, oh, he traveled too far forward. You have to think context, because if you look, here's your feature. Here's the person next to him. Look at the line. This is an ideal line format. Notice that the spacing's a little bit off here. Not only that, the depth is also off. He's a little bit too far forward, but it's because my guy is too far back. So if he moves forward, he's going to be the proper depth to justify his depth and his depth. Because you see it in symmetry on this side. You know, so that's just, it's so subtle. Like, remember, the most subtle things that I'm giving notes on, but it's so exciting of the fact that I can even talk about it. You know what I mean? I just love it. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I like that little dig, da-da-da. So it's more of like it's accented, and it kind of feels more like a, you know, whenever you're like knocking on a door, you know, it's kind of like that type of degree of rebound. That's the kind of rebound on the weight shift that you're dealing with the lower half. And then I like the rotation with the arm nice and full. And they go da-da-da-da-da. Notice they didn't really use a ton of fullness in the torso. That looks fine because they're using the rock. Not really rock. They're using the bounce to shift the weight to give it the appearance that our torso is engaged for that moment. It's great. Then they go switch, switch, switch. I love that. Then right here, back into the same choreo that we saw before. Really nice. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I like that where everybody is there collective. When you hear the ooh, ooh, it channels from the mouth. And so doing movements that kind of placate towards showcasing and focal pointing, hey, we're singing this, you know, it vibes really well. I love this little trot right there. Yeah, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. This part, it kind of feels like you're poking, which really ties into this move here too. That's why this didn't feel out of place, because they were already doing really nice kind of trotted up bounce kind of movements to progress it to that place wherever they would go low, but something cute, something high, but more of like we're running like the 80s fitness. It kind of feels like that, but like such a vibe, like Y2K vibes. So I like the pull of this, really nice. Yeah, so it's dun, 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 boom, 6, 7, 8. So they're actually going on counts whenever the beat is not on the count. So it goes ooh, 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 bum, 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 da na 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 na. So there's this like down beat that happens, right? Well, let's hear it, because if you notice that little trot, it goes the opposite of the beat that you would want to go on. Or maybe it's an audio overlay thing. Sometimes that does happen, regardless of how great or expansive a company is. Sometimes their audio overlay is not awesome. In this case, we're dealing with different cuts. There's a chance that this may be on not the correct timing. It could be off by like a half count, a quarter count, or whatever. But I digress. My point being, they're all on the same page. They're not going on that true like count, which just shows, ooh, they're making their own choice on that transition, which is really fun. And then right here, I like the fact that you have one of them is looking, it's like a call and response, but physically it's kind of is like Simon Says vibes, right? But my only person that is not doing that is easily going to be my feature, because he doesn't have his hands up. But then we go dig, 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 dig. Or he wasn't supposed to be featured and he just made a mistake. No, he is. He's supposed to do that because he's projecting to our camera to the front. So there we go. Love that. Yep, and I notice that my guys up top, they're going a little bit higher, and my guys in the middle line, technically, they're going lower, and then you have your other guy right there. He's there, and he's staying up to help placate to the back row, so it feels like more tiered like this, which I love. This is so cool. So cool. I like this choice. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, boom. Yeah, da-da-da-da. Notice the accent at the tail end of that. It's so fun. And then they take it, boom. I love the fullness of the run. And once again, on tempo, I would say my guy right here, he's not quite on that tempo there. And then right there, it's so fun. So fun! And they go tap, 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 tap once again that they did before. Subtlety and foam, and I love that they go away, and then they use the hand to kind of recognize we're looking back in that direction. Still different directions. It goes ooh, 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 and then take the subtlety there. Boom, da-da. Little ball changes, but notice they're a little sticky. Meaning that there's a kind of a stiffness, but not so stiff that you're not putting any energy into the floor. So it's like stiff, but you sink into the floor ever so slightly to kind of reestablish. It's similar to like whenever you step on gum, you know? And there's like that little residual effect. That's kind of what it reminds me of there. That do-do-do-do-do right here. And then we're right back into this chorus. Da-da-da. We can turn it off. And they rotate it around that part. Notice that we are at a different camera angle, so we're gonna look to see, did they fix it this time? Where we have everybody. I mean, yeah, I think it's a little bit better. One of our guys, I think Haru, I think he went a little bit too fast there, but so subtle. Yeah, right, boom, boom, boom. Ha, I love this choice where they take it. The little so they crisscross it. I like that. And then you have the subtlety once again. They dig through it. Woo, boom, wow. I love this. That's that old school hip hop, you know, it's like you're talking party scene going on right here. Then you go right there into the same stability check, and I love that. They raise it, boom, and then they drop all the way down really nice, and then they cross. Notice that they're taking the arms. There's going to be a subtle pull that happens in the arms as they cross over. So it counterbalances. You don't want all your energy to go in that direction, but you also don't want to overshoot and create this or this hinge that doesn't promote like more of a powerful projection forward. So that's why they're taking their ribs and they're allowing there to be some degree of opposition, but not so much that it changes the look of the move entirely. So I like that where they go and they transition it over collectively. That part, butter, I tell you. Notice that sound, right? Feels like a swirl of wind. So they're going to swirl the hand up nice and high. I love that move so much. So simple but effective. And then they're just nice little walk, and then they take it, okay, right there. So it goes, whoosh, boom. Then we're gonna rest it. Love it when they cross over on that. And they go and they reset. I love the little high five in the back. That was a cute moment. This part right here, bah, ha, ha. This right here, you're getting into that full out hip hop. Rock bounce, using and projecting with your power in the upper back. I love that. But this right here just feels more vibe building, groove progression. They're not going super loud with the movement, and they shouldn't, because even though the sound shifted, it's not so loud that it justifies like popping off and like this, bah, ah, you know, like this unhinged perspective. Here it's still contained, but there's a lot more fullness and a lot more power that's projecting in the upper body. So I like that choice on that. They throw it, boom, notice that. I love that everybody's having that same accent. It's kind of like they're getting sucker punched, and they have this progression of creating a pocket in the upper chest. Woo, making that a fun accented moment, but everyone making subtly different choices. Some people were doing the little I love you sign, and it hits you, boom, boom, and then we throw it down really nice to a ball change. And then you have your feature. The only one he kind of just does a little hop. Everybody else freaking jumps it. Some are taking a more like picking the feet behind. Some are doing more of a not really tuck jump. I mean, if we're gonna go, I would say these two guys, these three are kind of common denominator. I think he overshot, brought his knees up a little bit too much. His feet need to go back ever so slightly. And I would say my guy right here as well. So it's so subtle, but like, goodness gracious, this is so impressive. Just like having these three clocked like that. And then of course, it looks like, honestly, being for real, it looks like he's squatting and somebody photoshopped him right here in this moment. I think that's so funny, but you want to talk about even distribution of your angle? Like, that's pretty dope, honestly. So I love that. They drop it down. One of my guys, Haru, so they drop it down. He didn't go all the way down in his upper body, but his legs did. And so you were able to subtly see him there. And then from there, they go head, shoulders. It feels like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. A little tap, tap, tap. And they're hopping on one foot. It feels similar to the stability check they did with one leg, but they're hopping it so it's a different groove to come out of it. Really cool. And then we're doing our own little vibe right here. This does remind me of, there's something else. Could be in an archive. Please do not quote me on that, though. I'm not going to talk about it. And that's not Alex's archive, though. It'd be either Rana's, J-Ho's, or Kirsten's, one of those, which is everybody else's. But I love the levels. Notice that my first two are a little bit lower, and then my midline with my feature is mid. And then you have my two guys in the back. They have their arms a little bit higher to showcase some sense of levels. Love that. And then they all go the other direction. Your feature does a nice little step out. Subtlety right here. Ooh, the filthiness. So good. They take it through, boom, and you hear this sound. So they're using that knee to trigger the energy to promote it, to rotate it around right here into a different spot. Now, did they get to this spot from this position? Would they have ideally... I mean, I think we would have been really close. I would say the only two that I would say my guys that are right here would be the only two that would have some potential discrepancy on messing up the depth of the V, because I already saw that earlier, but it's so subtle, and they shifted the cut, so I can't really verify it. But I love this section so much. Probably my favorite section of the whole thing. Let's talk through it. This right here, they go reset it, boom. It kind of feels, wasn't that like a fixed point they just did there? I think it's what they did. Hold on. So they take it and then go wee, and then it goes body roll, and they're taking the arm down. Notice this arm is not moving the same way the body roll is. That is the beauty of keeping both grooves in check, or not grooves, but both movement and textures in check. By them being separate but complementary allows us to appreciate what they're doing right here in this moment. I love it. Love it. And then they go turn it. So it goes 1, 2, turn it. But this is still going. And then right here, you go I don't think it's, this is interesting. So my feature's the one that kind of makes it an interesting choice, doesn't it, right? So I would say, so he goes outside, inside, and then my line 2 both go the same direction, and then my feature goes the other direction. So it kind of feels that we're looking at two different dynamic choices at the same time. Normally you would either have, everybody does every other, so line 1, because if you look at a V, it's technically different lines and their spacing's further out. So if you're looking at a V, sometimes the point, you skip the second line, and then the third, they go the same direction as the feature does, and then the fourth line goes the same direction as line 2. But in this case, they kind of mixed two things together. They had my outside, my back two lines go mirrored from each other, and then they did the first two lines go opposite regardless of if you are next to a mirror or not. I just find it fascinating. It doesn't bother me at all. I was just trying to figure out why it doesn't bother me. It's just because they marry two different formation choices together. I think that's cool. So freaking dope. Love it. And then everybody's making subtle changes, or just energy choices. Some are crossing, some are uncrossing, some have it over, some have it under, and where they're looking is different. So those are really good indicators to really help us know, okay, this was supposed to be an individualized choice, which we can very clearly see. But everybody's groove is the same. Notice the subtlety of the grunginess of the subtlety of the hips. So cool. And then they just flip-flop to the opposite direction. So you have 3. This is just so interesting to me. So he's over this way, he's this way, and he's this way. And then you got 4. No. There's levels and they're lower. So it goes from high to low. He looks photoshopped in this moment right now. It's fun. This is so fun how some of these picture moments I've clocked. It's cool. So he's going this direction. He's a little bit higher as well. He's higher, low, 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 low. So, okay. I just, this is so fun. This is so fun that you have like different level choices as well as different directions, and it's not really quite clear the structure of it. I think it just makes it feel different. But then they go right there into the unison again. I think that's what helps justify the risk-taking of going so sporadic in your direction choices, is that they can bring it back together in unison so seamlessly. And then they start right back over again. There's your subtlety. Then turn it off. then they boom, and then they do a nice kind of teeter-totter effect with the hand, but they still have, and they end up breaking down the body where they're having a little bit of an accent point going on in the core as they make it feel a little bit more sharper than that subtle legato they were doing earlier. There we go. And then everyone's taking the energy regardless of the level. They're all taking it and moving it over to the side. God, that's so cool. Right on, right on, right on, guys. Let's boom. And a kick. I love that with the accent. So fun. Kick. Ha. Ha, I love that. Side, 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 side. Let's go. The nice little, you know, this is Charleston influence potentially. I like it where they just do a little crossover. And then you have your feature. He does a nice same arm as what you saw from here. So there's a lot of these types of overlaps that kind of orchestrate a lot of chest choices, which is really cool. Then you have another feature pop out over on the tail end. Then they do a little ball change, pick up the foot, same rate. The walks are really nice. Then they go heel, heel. Notice, I love the opposition of the ribs or of the torso on this, where the angle really helps make this heel look more full. If you're going to clock someone, clock him, because notice his rib or his torso is angled this way and his legs the opposite direction. Notice the pull of the line, but then you notice one of them, he's more back, and so it doesn't feel quite as full, but also he doesn't have his leg fully extended at this moment either. But that's why these just look subtly different. He looks more full. It's because his torso is in more opposition than some of the other counterparts. So that would be my note to everybody. This would be the ideal format if you really want to showcase that just the shift of that crossover on this is really cool. So the walks are really nice. This is honestly the least clean section of all of it, but it's still very subtle. So the cross there, I like the throw of the arm. So this first angle I think is way easier for everybody to be on the same page. But hold on. So one of them ends up going side, side, up, down. Mostly everybody else goes side, back, hit, down. So going from side to back is easier in the quickness, that boom, boom, in your core and your obliques. But my guy in center, he freaking clocked it on the other side. That's a lot harder to do. So we're just going to chalk it up to, that may not have been a thing that's like decided the footwork, like the feet matter the most in this section. Crossover, so they shift over, boom. Yeah, so some of them are actually like popping or accenting it to the back. That boom, boom. It's cool. Hitting it through, and then they push and bring up the chest. So we're just going to leave that part alone. That's so fascinating, that little section though. Seeing the difference between the two, and then the one that I see in the center, he went the other direction with the torso, which is a lot harder, and that's so impressive. Then they dig it through. I like the little pickup. I like what my guy right here is doing. He is so killing it. That little pickup of the foot and then dropping it down. I don't think anybody else picked up the foot the same way. Yeah, I like how he picked it up, right, and a ride. Everybody else just kind of moved it down. They rotated from the ball of the foot down, similar to, like, if you were to do gliding work, that would be something you would see there. But from there, you have your other feature. He goes forward. Everybody takes the head. They walk to the back. And what's nice is he walks, and he turns to the front. I love this because he's not technically looking, because they're just far enough away. I don't know if he can peripherally clock them. So he has to know where to stop without looking at them, and it didn't give the impression he looked at them at all. And he sits right there in freaking center on the formation. The camera is off. They are in line. Oh my freaking goodness. This is a long video, but there is so much fun to be had looking at this, and I am so glad that we have a fixed cam to be able to appreciate the choreography for what it is. Hallelujah. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you want to see more NEXZ, my goal is to stay on top of this group. They're a Gen 5 group, so everything that I've looked at with this group is on YouTube. But the catch is, I always early release any content I make, including NEXZ, on Patreon first. So if you are an impatient individual, you want to see this a couple days earlier than you could have seen it on YouTube, Patreon is going to be where that happens. I'm looking at this day of release, but this is not getting released onto YouTube until about a day, 2 days after. So if that kind of gives you kind of ballpark of how long you'd have to wait in general for this group. I loved the fact that we had a full shot, like truly, because all the other material I've seen from them has always been a motion concept shot. And I love seeing the performance version, don't get me wrong, but I felt like it couldn't really understand or see the group as a group in their true degree of synchronicity, because I had so much of a cinematic influence on it. And so I'm really glad that even though this had a really nice high quality environment and really good cinematic shots on the aerial and just getting everybody, you know, shown, I was still able to really appreciate the choreography and how it was structured. So yay to the choreographers. I love seeing it, and I love being able to just talk about what makes choreography look so awesome. And I think this was a great example of that. Once again, my name is Jess, and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.